Chapter 17 of The King's Daughter. The King's Daughter by Pansy. Chapter 17. Little Mamie's Death. How unsearchable are his judgments, and his ways past finding out. All day long had Dell Bronson been in and out of Sam Miller's home, moving with that quick yet softly tread, which betokens that there is much to do, and need for that sort of quietness that prevails when a solemn stranger is being entertained. She had spent much time there during the last 3 days. She came in now bearing a host of white flowers, and went with them to the inner room. Mrs. Mason followed her, and the two stood together looking down on little Mamie. The child had never lain in so beautiful a resting place before, and surely no sleep could be sounder or sweeter than that which held the eyelids close, and wreathed a faint pure smile around the quiet mouth. Little Mamie had suffered her last stroke for the cause of rum. She would never shiver and pale again, because of her father's unsteady step. In her little delicate coffin she slept undisturbed. Dell showered the flowers over her, placed a tiny white bud in her little waxen hand, then stood waiting in pitying silence, while the poor desolate mother studied through blinding tears the features of her lost darling. "She is too sweet to be put in the ground," she moaned. "Only see what a smile on her face, and she holds the flower just as though she was looking at it when she dropped asleep. Oh, I can't have her buried in the ground. Oh, Miss Bronson, she is too sweet and pretty for that." "She is not too sweet for heaven," Dell said, tenderly. "You must not think of her as buried in the ground. You cannot imagine how beautiful the place is that she has gone to." But Mrs. Miller's heart was too sore for comfort. "I wanted her to live," she sobbed. "I needed her. I knew that she could do what I couldn't. She was fond of her father, Miss Bronson. You can't think how she loved him, and he loved her too. Folks needn't think he didn't, for he did. He was like a lamb with her always, when he was himself, and she could coax him to do most anything she wanted him to. She had begun to coax him to go to them temperance meetings of yours, and, Miss Bronson, you know he went once. And I know she could have got him over on the right side, if she could only have lived, but now he'll go to ruin faster than ever. And God knows I wish I was dead and laid in the coffin with my darling." And then the great scalding tears burst forth afresh, and dropped on the waxen face before her. So natural the little one looked, that it seemed like she would put up her hand to wipe away the tears. What was there for Dell to say? The way looked dark enough, certainly. The mother's one comfort in life had been her fair-haired, sweet-faced, gentle-voiced Mamie. And Dell knew how, aside from all the deeps of love that the mother heart lavished on her one lamb, there was always the hope that the father would be won over from his evil ways by this child. He loved her. Dell, who had seen them often together, did not in the least doubt it. And now nothing seemed more probable than that, stung by terrible remorse, goaded by every separate blow that he ever let fall on the frail body, stung especially by those last blows only the night before Mamie was taken sick, he would plunge recklessly into drink to drown his wretchedness. It was a dark, dark way. She could not wonder that the poor mother wept and moaned over this open coffin, refusing to be comforted. There was but one ray of comfort. She turned again and again to that. "But, Mrs. Miller, think. You have not lost her, she is only gone a little way, and isn't it good to remember that she will never suffer any more? You know," this last spoken hesitatingly, for she knew she was treading on sensitive ground, "you know she had a great deal to suffer here, and that is all over now. No more pain or trouble of any kind for little Mamie." Mrs. Miller rose up from her crouching posture beside the coffin, and dried her eyes while she spoke rapidly, almost fiercely. "You don't understand, Miss Bronson. You didn't know my Mamie as I knew her. She would have borne everything that she did, yes, and a great deal more, to save her father. That was her one thought, day and night. I don't understand it at all. I tried to take in what you've said to me about God hearing our prayers, and I've tried to pray. The other night I prayed all night long to Him to save my Mamie's life, for her poor father's sake, and it all did no good. Here she lies, dead. And her father will go to ruin. I suppose it must be so, but I can't understand it. I can't believe that she will be happy up there in heaven when she looks down and sees her father and mother miserable. She loved us so, you know." Poor mourning mother! She had built her hopes on this fair bit of clay that lay motionless before her, and now she had nothing on which to cling. Dell stood looking at her with great sad eyes, uncertain what to say, or whether it would be well to say anything. At last she ventured, timidly: "Mrs. Miller, there is one verse in the Bible that comforts me more than almost any other. 'His ways are not as our ways,' it says, and I think of that constantly. When I make plans and God seems to come in between them and brush them all away, then I remember that he can certainly plan better than I, and that he wants the people whom I am trying to help, wants them for his own, you know, a great deal more than I possibly can, and that quiets me." Mrs. Miller only dimly understood her meaning. She knew nothing of the abiding trust that lived in Dell's heart; but she knew that Dell's father was in the same awful snare as her husband, and she knew that Dell's heart was heavy over it. She had come to understand the young girl during these months. They were waging war against a common foe, and while she worked for her father, Mrs. Miller knew that she still had given time and thought to Mamie's father. Thus it was that she had let this girl dress little Mamie for the last time, and lay her in her coffin bed, and cover her with flowers. Everything was done now, and already the people were beginning to gather to the funeral, so Dell drew the poor mother away. What a pitiful thing it was, yet what a wonderful thing, this human love. Here was this mother looking her last on her one treasure, her only child, yet mourning chiefly even then for her husband, who had as surely been the means of placing her thus early in her narrow bed, as though one of his cruel blows had sent her suddenly to join the dead. The house had been very neatly and even tastefully arranged. Dell had tried to give it as little as possible the appearance of a drunkard's home. The burden was heavy enough to bear, without exposing the wounds more than was necessary to the outside world. The people were few and scattering who came to little Mamie Miller's funeral. Miss Emmeline Elliott led the choir, but she did not come, neither did the choir. But the mother had said only a little while before, "Couldn't they sing a hymn, do you think? Mamie loved to hear singing so much." And Dell had answered unhesitatingly, yes, they would sing a hymn. So now she looked about her, somewhat startled to find that no choir appeared. It was the usual custom, she knew, in Lewiston. It had not occurred to her that they would not be likely to come, because it was only Sam Miller's child. So when, after much looking about her, and much questioning of Tommy Truman, she began to understand the matter, she turned with flashing eyes to Mr. Tresevant. She had not seen him, save from the pulpit, since that evening when he bade her good bye, 3 weeks before. But she spoke to him at this time, as though she had seen him but yesterday. "Mr. Tresevant, Mrs. Miller wishes to have singing." "I don't know how to manage it," he said, looking troubled. "If I had known it before, I would have tried to induce some of the choir to come, but there is not one of them here." "I can manage it," Dell said briefly. "I will sing." "Will you wish to sing entirely alone?" he asked her in a startled way. "No," she said, looking past him toward the doorway, where some one was entering. "Mr. Forbes will sing with me." Now it chanced that Jim Forbes, mindful of his old friendship for Sam Miller, and of sundry red-cheeked apples that he had given little Mamie, thereby winning himself to love her, had asked and obtained an hour's leave of absence to attend the funeral. And it also chanced that Dell, sitting beside him in Sabbath school, had occasionally heard him burst forth into splendid song, so now she went forward at once to claim his assistance. He was startled and confused and gratified all in one. "But, Miss Bronson, I can't sing anything that you can," he said, blushing fiercely. "Then I will sing something that you can," she answered quickly. "You can sing 'There is sweet rest in heaven,' for I've heard you. Well, we will sing that." "But," said Mr. Tresevant, on being informed of the selection, "do you think that will be quite appropriate for so young a child?" "Yes," said Dell, with stern eyes and firmly set lips, "entirely so. If any one ever needed rest from the heavy burdens of life, it is poor little Mamie." So it came to pass that never was a sweeter and tenderer requiem more sweetly sung than that which floated around Mamie Miller's coffin. But Dell tried in vain to soften the despairing feelings in her heart, and find appropriateness to the services that followed. "The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away, blessed be the name of the Lord," quoted the clergyman. And Dell thought of the bruises and scars all over the poor little body, and felt rebelliously that rum had taken her away. When he talked of the providence of God, she thought drearily of the bottle of rum in Sam Miller's closet. In vain she tried to make the service seem other than sacrilege. Her faith was strong enough to grasp the thought that dear little Mamie was at rest, but it seemed to her overwrought heart that it was the earthly father's cruelty, not the heavenly Father's love, that had taken her from earth. Very dark looked the world. Sam Miller's heavy, half averted face and bloodshot eyes, and the bowed mother's look of absolute despair, were alike suggestive of gloom and hopelessness; and the clergyman's smooth, gentle tones, as he dwelt upon the great army of little children redeemed unto God, jarred painfully. The little children were safe and glad. Yes, she believed that; but the fathers, such as these, who had abused their trust, and made it impossible that their little ones should stay with them, should they be soothed to rest and sleep by the words of peace? Ah me! Dell was down in the depths, where so many Christians often fall. She had lost sight of the thought that in spite of the woe and want, and wickedness and weariness of this wicked world, God reigns. Well, the very small procession followed Mamie to that little grave under a maple tree, and the father bit his white lips until the blood came on them, and the mother moaned in the very bitterness of desolation as they lowered that tiny coffin, and the minister's calm voice said, "Earth to earth, and ashes to ashes, and dust to dust," and then they went back to the dreary house, the father and mother and Dell. All the rest went away to their work, to their study, to their play; but Dell came back and set the chairs in less formal array, and drew up the paper shades, and put away in a little box one small wreath that had lain on Mamie's breast, put it with a curl of hair and a little speck of a locket that Mamie had worn and loved, and made a cup of tea and a bit of toast that the poor mother could not eat. Finally, she must go home. They would have to take up their burden of living alone. She could not help it, there was no excuse for longer tarrying. Out on the gate, through which she would have to pass, leaned Sam Miller. She was sorry for that. The stricken mother might have pity in her heart for him, but Dell felt little. Her heart was bitter toward him. She did not want to meet him or speak to him. He held open the gate for her to pass, and as she was doing so, swiftly and with a silent bow, he stopped her. "Miss Bronson, I suppose your father can do without me to night?" he said hesitatingly. "Yes," Dell said; he would not be expected that night. "There was something else," he said, as she was moving on. Will you tell your father that he will have to get some one else to do his work after this? I can't come there any more." Dell turned eager, hopeful eyes upon his face. "I am so glad to hear you say so," she said, earnestly. "I have been hoping you would find better work. Where are you going?" "I don't know," he said, with a grave, determined face. "I haven't got to that yet. I only know what I ain't going to do, and I'll tell you what it is, Miss Bronson, because I think you will be glad to know. I ain't going to touch another drop of rum, so help me God. I promised my little Mamie that, when I was all alone with her a few minutes, the night before she died, and I mean to keep the promise. My wife don't know anything about it yet, but Mamie knows, and God knows." It is impossible to give you an idea of the solemnity of Sam Miller's tones. They impressed Dell with a sense of respect such as she had certainly never felt before for him, and also a certain sense of awe as if he were being sustained and strengthened by some unforeseen power. She held out her hand to him, having no words to say. He grasped it eagerly, and then asked in a very quiet, determined tone, "Have you got your pledge book about you, Miss Bronson? I mean to sign the pledge, and I'd like to do it to night, partly because I shall feel stronger after it's done, and then I think Mamie would like it." "And your wife," Dell said, as she drew forth her unfailing pocket companion, a tiny black covered pledge book. "Why, Sam, only think what a world of comfort you are going to bring to her sad heart to night." "Yes, it will comfort her. Mamie thought of that, too. She planned that I should tell her after we come back from her grave." Then he rested the little pledge book on the post of the gate, and wrote with steady hand the name Samuel Miller. Home through the deepening twilight sped Dell. Home, and up to the quiet of her own room. Her heart was in a tremble of thanksgiving and self-reproach. How utterly she had distrusted her father! With the very weapon which she in her wisdom had felt sure would destroy, God had spoken to the soul in danger and turned his footsteps. And Dell sought her knees in thankful and repentant prayer. End of Chapter 17. Recording by Trisha G.